Every building begins as an idea, a sketch on a page, a vision in someone's mind. But turning that vision into reality requires something far more complex: engineering, logistics, people, and the relentless discipline of construction. The construction industry is one of those great engines of economic development. It builds our cities, our infrastructure, and the spaces where businesses and communities grow. Yet it is also one of the most demanding industries in the world. Today on Braadcast, we speak to someone who has spent decades navigating that world. Nico Louw, the driving force behind Renico Construction, has built a company that has played a significant role in shaping South Africa's built environment through large-scale projects across multiple sectors. This is a conversation about entrepreneurship, resilience, and what it really takes to build the physical foundations of an economy. Nico, welcome to Braadcast. It is my obviously honor and privilege to have you here. Thank you for saying yes when I called you and asked you to join us. And I look forward, and we look forward to hearing your story and how and where it all started and how it all went. So again, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Norman. It's great being here. Thanks for the invitation. A bit of a hesitant yes, not being a bit camera shy, I think, from the west of Joburg. But here we are. Let's give it a go.
Yeah. So when I first called you, you said to me, "What would anyone want to know from a Dutchie from Krugersdorp?"
100%.
Well, I can tell you, you were one of the first names that came to my mind when it was dealing with entrepreneurship and property and a story. I mean, we discussed it, and it wasn't even a doubt. I said, I have to get Nico on the show, and here you are. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation, Norman.
So yes, we've mentioned started in the Wesrand, and you were a scholar, and you were at home, and you were ambitious, and you were looking forward to making money. I don't know. I'm sure those days, although everyone in those days, I think we were relatively the same age. Our parents were very hard on us,
100%,
and we needed to make our own way.
Yes.
So tell us the very first time that you knew that you wanted to be in business, and how it originally started.
Norman, I think being in business is something that I was fortunate to be born with. I think I had an acumen for doing business. From a young age, I played a lot of tennis and played at school, and my dad bought me a stringing racket from Tadler and Pledger there in Joburg, as he was a Nedbank banker. And I used a racket, and while I played tennis tournaments here at Wanderers and everybody else, I was stringing tennis rackets and earning a buck on the side with that. That evolved. We had friends down the road that had a rental property out in Roodepoort, and I heard the conversation and the tenant issues that they had, and I thought at a very young age, I'll take that on, I'll collect the rent. And I started a rental property business collecting one old lady's rental in Roodepoort. And it grew from that. And
how old were you then?
I wasn't at 6. I think I was 15 years old.
No ways.
Yeah, so it evolved fairly quickly from there. My mom was she was with the Western Home Finder, a property paper on the West Rand. And I quickly got involved in real estate. She got me a weekend job sitting show houses. And the property, the interesting things of property fascinated me immediately. Something that you can collect rent, you can buy a property, you can leverage it, you can hedge it, you can do all kinds of things with it.
But someone must have taught you that, or did you just learn that?
I was at a real estate company sitting in show houses on the weekend, and I started reading up, and I did my estate agent's course when I was, I think, 16 or 17. I enjoyed the law of that. I enjoyed the economics of that. And at that course, somebody taught us how to use a financial calculator, Casio 733 financial calculator, and present values and payments and things I could calculate while I was battling Matric mathematics and accountancy. And that was something that I learned quickly, how interest works and how capital appreciations works and amortization worked. And it was just out of doing a real estate course to become a real estate agent, to be able to sit in a show house and earn $50 for a Sunday. And that evolved fairly quickly. I then went on and I bought a property. And at those days, there was a thing that I came across, Alienation of Land Act.
But it still exists today.
It still exists today. They used it in farming in those days where interest rates were high or low. I don't even know what time in the property cycle.
You and farmers pay to buy or something.
Yes, and I bought a first property for, I think it was 100,000 Rand, and I paid 1,000 Rand deposit, and I paid 1,000 Rand a month, and painted the property and neatened it up and rented it at 1,200 Rand a month. And that went on for a year or 3 or 4. And it was also a nice avenue because you didn't take transfer of the property, but you got your endorsement on the title deed. And
Was this before?
And I was 16 years old. So
No way.
I bought my first property in Discovery at 16 years old on the Alienation of Land Act, paying R1,000 a month. Probably 2 years later, the owner of the property phoned me up, or actually his father phoned me up and said, but this is actually working so well. They've got another property in Elder Crane. Would I be interested in looking at that on the same basis? And I bought my second property in Elder Crane. And then it accumulated, and I bought the third property, a rental flat for 30,000 Rand or whatever it was, and I paid cash for that. And by the time I was in Matric, 18 years old, I owned 3, 4, 5, 6 properties. And that evolved from there, and I was renting all of them all along. And when I got to 21, my first property, I was able to get a bond on it, and I got 150,000 Rand bond on the property that I paid 100,000 Rand for. And I still kept the property, and the rental income was still forthcoming. And it evolved from there. And that's when I started focusing all my effort in property.
So didn't you go study after school?
No, I did. I went to Rao. I was in Rao for 6 months. But while I was in Rao, I was actually running a business. I had a real estate company on the West Rand. We employed 180 agents. We had 6 branches. So it was to go and study was a bit of a waste of time in my eyes at that point. Although hindsight, I should have stuck and did finish my BCom degree, but I never did.
And it was your company.
It was my company, yeah. And I eventually got a partner in that to help me assist it, called News Property Brokers. It was one of the biggest real estate companies on the West Rand that I ran. And then I was a youngster, 25 years old.
I can tell you now, whoever's listening, going to watch us, is going to be saying, wow, because this is really, for such a young entrepreneur to have a business at that age and those many people employed and starting with literally nothing, has seen an opportunity, taken a gap, not going to university. It's not everything that you want to be preaching to your kids.
No, not at all.
but it worked for you.
It worked very well. But I think we were in the fortunate time that the economy was on the up. That was 89, 94, 95. You could go to the bank, and I remember going to the bank manager of Perm Bank in Goldman Street with 3 or 4 offers. And he says, which one would you like a bond on? I said, but can I have 2 bonds? I said, you can have 4 bonds. and you get 4 bonds approved for 100%, 110%. And the property values are always on the increase. And I simply just adapted the methodology of accumulating property and renting it out, revenue stream on that. And that's how I grew it. Then
But let's talk about that period, because 94, 95, 93, 94 was a challenging, difficult, and a tumultuous time in South Africa. There were a lot of people that didn't have the confidence and the belief and the vision to buy. There were a lot of people that were selling. They thought this was the end of the world. It was Armageddon, was about around the corner, and the lights were going to get turned off. They only got turned off like 25 years later, but they thought it was the end then. And you saw the opposite.
Ignorance is bliss, I suppose, at a time in your life. I was acquiring property and getting finance on the property and building forth in that. And then it got into a point about 1996, 1997, I thought, but maybe I should get into the developments, because now in the real estate business, we had second-hand sales, and we had 140 agents selling there out of 6 branches, and we thought, let's venture into the new development phase. That was doing quite well. I headed up the new development phase and then the property rental business, and we were selling developers' properties, buying stock, launching a sectional title scheme, and sell 40 units on a weekend.
You must have had someone to help you or learn from someone how to do a new development.
Not really. We learned, I spent a lot of time studying the Sectional Title Act, because that was quite an interesting thing, that you can build a multiple amounts of homes and then have a body corporate that manages it. And I had the financial backing of bankers that trusted in us and suppliers that we built a good relationship with at the time. We got involved in developments, and I started another business, Renico Construction, in 1998. And we started building homes, single buy a stand, build a house, but mostly sectional title schemes. On the West Rand at that time, you had real estate firms, SA Land, Les Fatherly, that you phoned him up and you said, I want to buy a piece of stand, and he sends you a price list of 10 pages of Resi 1, Resi 2, Resi 3, Resi 4, commercial, industrial. It's like a price list, a stock sheet. And you picked, and everything, the services were there, the sites were there, they were power capacity was available, and you nitpicked whatever you want and you bought it and you put a product formulation together and you launched it and you sold it out, and you had to build it as economically as possible. And it's there where I saw that, and the frustrations of materials taking longer to site, and you wait for a guy with a TLB that you hire to dig foundations that rocks up a month later, and he comes and delivers his old machine to site that's leaking oil. That's where we took the step into Renico Plant Hire. We bought our own machines, and the machine started building from there, that we started building developments. We did mostly sectional title developments. We understood it well. We weren't scared of that.
So your first sectional title development, when was that?
That was 1998. We built 16 units, 60 square meter, 3-bed, 2 bathrooms. We built it in 6 weeks, and we sold it on the day of the launch.
All of them?
All of them. 828,000 Rand development bond.
In the West Rand?
In the West Rand. 828,000 Rand development bond from ABSA. And we ended up doing the development, I think, at 800,000 Rand. And we still had 28,000 Rand left out of the development bond. Sold the units, all 16 of them for, I think we sold them for 108,000 Rand a unit. Sold them and made great profit. And it evolved from there.
And you say we. Did you have a partner? Or?
No, I didn't have I say we, as I see our friends, our supply chain, our suppliers, our bankers as my partners in everything that we do. But I'm a sole business. I'm 100% capitalized myself. I've always been along. Here and there we get involved with partnerships and bigger things and shopping centers that we've developed, that we've had a partner or two involved, but everything is mostly Nico at the end of the day.
But Nico, I mean, there were still early stages. You were not even 30 years old.
Yes.
And you were doing these 16 units and it started like now you bought your own TLB, and it started like growing. You had a few people in your construction team. And no one knew Renico Construction.
No.
I mean, everyone knew a lot of other big developers. I mean, I remember those days there was Summercon and there was Sable, all in the northern suburbs. But in the West Rand, not many people ventured out there from this.
They call it the Woesrand. Yeah, it's a bit woes there.
I can tell you. Yeah. But then you started doing some bigger developments.
Yes.
And that landscape on the West Rand basically was changed by yourself and a number of other developers that were there at the time, which I know some of them. But
those are the blooming years. Those are the great years that services were available. There was a market available that if you did cash housing, typical affordable or sectional title schemes, you didn't have to get much wrong to do a great development. And those were the blooming years that we did very, very well on the West Rand. But so did the rest of the country, the north of Joburg, the Summercons and others, our peers have done exceptionally well in building sectional title. And the sectional title was a way to get lots of homes built quickly and effectively functioning well thereafter. We then decided to branch out not just in residential, but also in commercial and industrial. I started getting very involved in that, and still today we enjoy industrial a lot. Because we've got the machine and the plant and the equipment, we can go to site and we can go and demolish something, and we can crush something, and we can recycle things, and we can build platforms.
You're talking about a construction company. I mean, let's not go back 10 years. Marion Roberts, bang.
Yeah.
Group 5, bang. Basil Reed, bang. Lavero, bang. I'm just saying that must be daunting in itself, owning a construction company, if you haven't got work.
100%. I think what makes us different from a construction company is we don't look for work. We don't tender the open market. We don't go and chase work like the names you've just called. We create our own stock. We see the opportunity in land, it'll be a residential development or commercial, industrial. We identify it. My team that's got an acquisitions manager and a town planner, we've got accountants and all kinds of people around us. We investigate the opportunity. We've done a lot of marketing. We've got a lot of clients that's come a long way with us, investors that started buying a unit for 100,000 Rand, and they bought 1 or 2 or 10 of those, and 20 years later, those are all worth R1 million each, and they're getting proper rent on them. So they've re-geared them over the years. So we've become their heroes in their eyes because we've created wealth for a lot of people, and it's an astute following. So, and some of those clients have become good friends, and you can ask them, or they come to us and say, I see this piece of land, or I see this derelict building along a main arterial. Maybe you guys should investigate this. And we investigate it, and we get involved and look at auctions, and we get involved with people like yourselves and others to buy opportunities, because we always hunt opportunities, land opportunities. We don't hunt a tender, or we don't sit in the open market and wait for somebody to give us a tender for us to put a competitive price in, get to work, and then struggle through that process of trying to make a buck out of building. We're more property developers. But I think what's the big difference for us, for Renico, is that we own a lot of property. We've invested a lot. In the old days, we had this methodology, or I had this methodology, say 70% of everything I develop, we sell, and 30% I keep. And that just builds up a rental portfolio. So in that, we've got a residential rental.
You still have that philosophy?
We still have that philosophy. Okay. And at one stage, before COVID, we were building 20,000 square meters of buildings a month that we were handing over. So it was a big machine. It was driving. And then COVID came, for instance. And when COVID really sunk its teeth in, we realized we've got 580 built, completed units that's not sold. And all of a sudden, that changes the dynamics, because now you've got a situation like COVID that we had that then really pinches you. Because
so before we get to COVID, because I think that was one of
recently.
Because that happened now. Before we get to go, so I remember the early 90s, and there was Ramsey Golf Course was developed. But there wasn't much.
No.
The
Little Falls was developed by JCI.
The shopping centres. There was certainly Waterfall Centre that what's it called? Waterfall
Clearwater Mall that Atterbury developed.
That place has gone through and I think you had a material effect on the residential side of that.
Yeah.
When did you? How many people part of that residential company are still employed today?
We've got a very small team. That makes us different as well. My office team is 36 people that we have. Our extended operator fleet is substantially bigger than that, because each one drives a machine. But the decision makers are still me and the Exco team that I have, and the CFO and the COO, and our head of town planning or head of property acquisitions. And we've got a marketing division that's headed up by my brother, and he sits into that. And that's our forum for a Friday. Every Friday we have acquisitions meetings, and we look at opportunities that's come across our table that we look at or that we're busy pursuing. And the key to all of that is, because it's a long game that we're in property, we need to identify the next big thing. If everybody's buying residential land now, you should be selling residential land. If everybody's buying commercial, you should be in resi. And if everybody's in resi, you should be in commercial. And that we had a bit of luck in that, if I want to say it like that. We've bought the old Hall Longmore site in Krugersdorp on Voortrekker Road on an auction on a Royal Levitt, I think.
Auction Alliance?
Auction Alliance auction. We bought it from them, I think, if I'm right. For a song. I think it was paid 100 Rand a square meter. We had big factories on it that we all demolished. We crushed it. We sold the scrap metal. We built platforms. We built an industrial park 20 years ago. And we still own that park today.
So was that your first commercial involvement?
We actually built industrial estate in Robertville before that. So my first house I bought was in Discovery, and about 20 years after I bought it, I then sold it because I was disinvesting from Discovery, because I thought you should buy north of Ondekkers Road towards Ramsey, Little Falls, up to Sunninghill, going towards Sandton, and let me rather disinvest in the south of Ondekkers Road. And the first industrial property we bought was on Leader Road in Stormall, and we built 16 factories there that we actually enjoyed the process a lot. Bought it, developed the 16 factories of 500 square meters each, and we're renting that, and we're still renting that.
It's still part of your portfolio.
It's still part of the portfolio. And that's the thing, we build proper, when we look at a project and we identify a project, we ring fence it and we say, this is going to be for residential, for keeping. And we keep it, we design it in that fashion. If it's a sectional title scheme, we do certain things in it because we're keeping it. There's a bit different from a sectional title. We'll build a resident or a groundsman flat with it, and we build certain things with it. That's not always what you'll do if you sell the site, but if you're keeping the residential stock, then you build it to specific requirements.
Then you started your construction company and you started getting into some serious industrial properties. I mean, you went north.
We went north and south and everywhere. We built a lot of industrial.
In Lanseria, I think you started
we did
that road there, and it was massive development. Yeah. And a lot of that, I think, was on risk.
100%. At one stage, we had close on 90,000 square meters of industrial space being built on spec. And at that time, Investec financed it for us. We had a very good rapport with Investec, with Stephen Kossoff and Mark. And they backed the jockey ultimately. And we built Renico's industrial estate at 38,000 squares. We bought land from IPROP, from Rick Bennett in Amalgam. We bought Amalgam, a 40,000 square meter industrial park. And they were all, at the time, big risk items, but the market forgave us, and we let those, and we still own them. We built a reputation, though, that we could create activity on site fairly quickly because we own the machines, we own the supply chain, we build for ourselves. So when the Lanseria Corporate Estate was launched, John Vol and the developer from Lanseria Corporate Estate, Lanseria Trust One, approached us and they asked us would we be interested in looking at buying land here and developing, and we ended up developing a lot of buildings in Lanseria Corporate Estate.
But I mean, I remember clearly the stuff that you built there at the time, the look, the way you built it was better than anything around Joburg. I mean, it was like ahead of the game.
It was ahead of the game. I think we spent a lot of time in understanding the 1,500 square factory, the business owner that typically goes into it. What does he require in terms of an office? What does he require in terms of a warehouse? But by that time, we were doing a lot of land manufacturing, as we call it, where we actually buy farmland, we go through the township processes, we add the value to it, we then put the civil services into the townships. And for that, we developed League Lane Extension 2 in Stormwell, where the road's called Renico Crescent for our sons, and Eureka DIY, the little orange screw people that they came on, and we built, I think, 40,000 square meters of buildings for them on that park. We then went and we built Mostane Park, just next to, between Cosmo City and Kaya Sand. We did the whole industrial township of 15, 20, 30 hectares of land that we actually did the services for. Then took one or two of the stands, built the buildings on it, created that momentum, and then other people bought stands and built their businesses. And we've been fortunate to have great operators on the West End that's bought buildings from us and have bought land from us and built buildings in that area.
Do you still, Lanseria is still part of your portfolio?
Some of Lanseria is still part of our portfolio. Yes, we do own land there still, buildings.
And your construction team's still going?
The construction team's still going. It's a much smaller team than what it was post-COVID. COVID was probably, and one of the pre-questions that you sent me is, what was the hardest thing that you've experienced in construction? And I think the hardest things we experienced was actually quite recently. We've had a very, very good run in Johannesburg. We've had a good run in life. We've had a good run in a lot of places, but COVID was a real step back for us. We've had a lot of issues with tenants not paying rent, and there we saw that the commercial industrial space is maybe not the greatest place to be if you're a property owner or a landlord. We saw there that residential is probably a better investment. It spreads the risk if it does nothing else, because 100 tenants is not going to stop paying your rent. They might have
maybe 10 stop paying your rent.
Out of a building of 100, maybe 10 stop paying completely. But if you ask them why they stop, they've got a reason. And if you manage that reason, because hard times happens to people in life, things happen. They lose jobs, they fall in love, they fall out of love, and everything else in between. And if you manage that, residential tenants always stand up and they do well. With a commercial tenant, if a commercial tenant like a gym doesn't pay you rent for a year because they haven't been able to be open for a year, that hurts. That really hurts.
But you obviously had good financial partners that could weather the storm with you.
Not really financial partners, but bankers. Because our portfolio was with Nedbank and Investec.
I meant
bankers.
They end up being your partner anyway.
They end up being your silent partner, like a lot of other government institutions. That's your silent partner. Like local councils are silent partners.
So would you say that's the most difficult period for you in the development?
Yeah, I think since COVID is definitely a change in the property market. It's a change in the end users, the property owners. Property ownership as such has come under a lot of pressure. You even have the work from home thing, and people, or the new generation coming through, that we sometimes wonder if the new generation actually, are they pro buying property? Are they pro owning property? We are sometimes of opinion that maybe that's not. And today in Renico, I believe that our biggest drive is to build more rental stock, because the demands for rental stock, residential rental is probably the next big thing in my mind in South Africa going forward. We know that the risk is spread.
Well, it's shown across the world. I mean, I think we in South Africa are lagging behind with regards to residential investments and funds and things like that. But it's more robust than any other investment. And in the world, they're traded a much lower, much better yield. I mean, they're much more valued than they are in South Africa. I mean, like you said, if one tenant or two tenants can't pay, the rest are still paying it. But the young generation, the millennium generation, let me just tell you, they don't want to be tied down.
100%.
They want to be flexible. They want to move. They want to get in and out. And
instant gratification. They come and go. But we see that they've got this aspirations of going, but they end up not going anywhere. And all of a sudden they become a tenant for a long periods of time. We've seen that the residential rental portfolios post-COVID has quieted down. It's buttoned down. We now find that residential tenants asking us, can we sign 5-year leases with you? Can we sign a 3-year lease? Because pre-COVID, we used to do a 6-month lease or a year lease, and after 6 months, you can put the rent up for 3% or 2%. But today it's a different story. You find a residential tenant he's made up his mind. He's a long-term residential tenant. He wants surety. He wants to know where he's going to be. He wants to be in a property that's maintained and well looked after. And they're aspirational, and they're great tenants. But that's their choice. They want to be there because there's this specific, or this idea that they want to be agile, they want to be able to move quite easily. But at the end of the day, they don't really move. They might move to a bigger home or a smaller home in life, but in general, they want to know that they're going to be a tenant in the same property for the next 5 or 10 years. And that we see with schools being important, where you stay being important. Traffic is a major consideration, availability of services, and all of these things available at all times.
You're very involved now with, I think you're advising even some of the government and the councils of how to and what to do in town planning and everything that goes along with it, especially in your areas. I mean, what kind of role have they played? I mean, has it been always challenging, or is it just now most recently? Or
councils?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're not playing off the role that I believe they should be playing. I think our biggest challenge in Gauteng and Johannesburg, and probably in all the councils around Johannesburg, is services, availability of services. Services that's not being maintained and not being expanded is a huge, huge issue. And that's probably our biggest constraint going forward in development. And that will ultimately drive pricing. That will ultimately be to the consumer's detriment, and the cost of owning property and the cost of renting properties, the non-availability of services and the lack of services, or the bad condition that the services are in. So it's a real challenge. There's a lot that can be done. Has it
always been that way?
Since 1989, I haven't seen it go better. In the old days, the old Rudaport Town Council, they serviced Little Falls. They built roads, they put things on auction and made land available, and people went on a Saturday and you bought 5 stands from the Rudaport Council auction, the old parks or things that they've identified that's not available or no, not suited right, and it was sold to developers, and they built property and they created jobs and they created property ownership. That hasn't happened, unfortunately. We see the Cape doing that now, and they come under a lot of pressure for doing it from some people, but ultimately I believe that's what needs to be done. I mean, we've got this philosophy in Renico: build it and they'll come. You see this in Dubai. You see this in a lot of other places in the world where they rolled out the infrastructure and the people are coming. They build it and the people come.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, you've that whole area where you have been developing and all that stuff, the more and the quicker you build, the more jobs you create, the more income, money flows into that area. The just
money rolls.
Yeah, it's contagion, and then it just carries on going and going and going. So
100%.
If they can get their time planning done quicker, if they can get the services there, and if they can help, and so just to support the developers, it'll change. You always want to look at how many cranes can you see to see if the economy is doing well. It's the same as in construction. How many
cranes do you see?
Yeah.
That's for a property eye. That's what you do. If you're flying to a foreign country, you sit in the plane and you've inbound in short finals. That's what you look at. That's what you look for as a Norman. That's what Nico and everybody that will probably join you. That's like the burger economy with the McDonald's, the indicator they've got for us in the property industry is how many cranes you see. And we don't see far enough cranes in Johannesburg at all.
But I think if they can get that right, and I think if they can learn from what's happening in the Cape, because I was recently there, and there's a lot of good things that are working there, and the developers are licking their lips because they just can't build enough. They can't build fast enough, and everything that they build is getting sold out. There's some unbelievable, beautiful, iconic buildings going up in the Cape, and hopefully that'll set the example for the rest of the rest of South Africa, and maybe some will flow to Gauteng.
We really hope so. There's even a forum that believe that Gauteng is poised to be the next big thing. We've been sucking the hind tit for a long time in Johannesburg. We've had a lot of people move to the Western Cape. You see the property prices in the Western Cape, but Gauteng is still the economic heartthrob of South Africa. This is where it should be going well, but it's not. But we're starting to see green shoots. I honestly believe that the great ideas that's not always executed properly, and the great ideas that's not actually followed through, will get rectified by the management as it changes, as politics change. And you don't have to do a lot right. You just do some basic things right, and it'll change the playing field immensely. And now in Johannesburg, being in a negative growth in the past 10 years probably, we're coming off a very, very low base. If you're a speculative buyer.
We're in the auction business. We're auctioning properties, some of the residentials. But let me just tell you, it's changing. I can tell you there's the indicator, there's been 8,000 in the northern suburbs, 8,000 less homes for sale in the northern suburbs in the residential property 24 than there have been 4 or 5 months ago, and that's a good indicator.
100%. I think anybody that works in a corporate environment and ventures to the Western Cape sees that property values, and then realizes that Joburg is actually a hub. It's cheap. Johannesburg property prices, if you sit on a plane going somewhere, or you sit in you troll property 24, and you look at what anything in the Cape Winelands or the Cape, the bigger Cape costs, and what it costs in Joburg and Pretoria. It's become a joke, really. What you can buy for 3 or 4 million rand in Johannesburg, and what do you get for 3 or 4 million rand in the Cape? It's literally a mansion versus a bachelor flat.
Yeah, you're paying maybe 10,000 rand a square meter, and to build it'll cost you 30 or 25.
100%.
So there's real value. But now tell me about. You've almost achieved everything that you possibly could have achieved in your short. You're still young.
54.
You've had a hard life. But you're still young.
Dragged through the bush backwards. We aged 20 years in the past 5.
But tell us about what your plans are now. You've got your construction company, you've got your TLB company,
Plant
you've got your
company,
you got your.
But our biggest game is property ownership. In Renico Real Estate, we own property there. We've got a land holding that was a big noose around our neck during COVID. We're rolling that out, we're developing that. And today we see that with rentals in the affordable space, because ultimately, where do you go when the times get tough? You go right to the bottom of the property triangle, and that's an affordable space. So bonded homes with a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 60 square meter sectional title house today is costing 800,000 rand. That's expensive by all terms. But you're getting 8,200 Rand rent for those, and they rent by 100 a day if you can manufacture 100 a day. So in the economy, we're now at the point where people are paying more for rent what that same property will cost on a bond. And that's an indicative.
That's changed dramatically because it used to be the other way around.
It used to be the other way around.
It used to be a 4-5% return, and now you're looking at 11-12%
return. And that is now becoming the norm. And is it going to change? I'm not sure, because the point of entry to buy properties is become very difficult, because inflation at 3% and building inflation at 20%, they've gone apart so far that I don't know if individuals or young people can actually afford to buy property anymore. But if you look at world economies, property is not bought by young people. It's a luxury. If you own property in Europe, if you own property anywhere in the world, you are a very, very wealthy person.
So, I was having coffee with a developer that predominantly focuses in town recently, and he said to me, now, happened to sell a lot of properties to him in the early 2000s, and he said to me, he feels like it's 2003, 2004 all over again. It's 100%. Like deja vu.
Yes.
And he's going to have another go.
He's going to have another run at it. And he's probably going to have a successful run at it.
Yeah.
100%. I share the thoughts. We're seeing it like this. And today we're excited. We're seeing green shoots coming out. We see a market that's changed. We see a market that wants security. They want to be in town. They have to be in town because to move around, to have transport costs a lot of money. So there must be a life for Joburg CBD, although it's in such a state it will take a lot to get it right. There's a second life for Ferndale. There's a second life for a lot of these places with older buildings that you can re-kit them and repurpose them. I think you had Mike Flack here, or you've had...
Mike Flax was here. Yeah. Johnny Robbie, we've been...
from the rental guys.
Yeah. Justin Blaine.
Justin was here. And that's what they do. That's our whole business principle, running just on re-kitting old office parks for rental space. And it's a brilliant model that works well, and it sorts out a lot of problems, because somebody can come and rent on the West Rand and have a 30-kilometer trip every day that takes them 3 hours and cost them 100 Rand each way. Or they can come and rent a property in Joburg or in Ferndale or in Randburg or in Sunninghill, be 5 minutes from the office, and the rent is a bit more than what it is, but they've re-kitted a building.
So you seem to have had the vision of where to be. I mean, you've said Gauteng's the upside, low base, lots of potential, huge upside against what's happening around the country in the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape, Southern Cape. I mean, the West Rand, I know that's where you play, but where else do you think there's some potential? I mean, Benoni, Boxburg, we've seen a lot of stuff happening out that side.
Logistics is very big.
Yeah. Are you playing in that space?
We do logistics. We're not busy on the East Rand, although we did a building now for an international company that the old Pick and Pay DC on the N12 or cold storage facility that they bought. We demolished it. We rebuilt it. We built them a new 12,000 square fitment center for their business. It's called Dolandia, the company that does tail lifts on trucks. So all these cold refrigerated trucks that you see driving around taking consumer goods, the lift at the back that they use to offload and onload, they manufacture those in Belgium, and they import them to South Africa and they fit them here. We built a big building for them now on a repurposed site that we'd rebuilt. But the logistics is big. You know, the consumer is always, the consumer drive is there. We see the logistics being a big hub. We see it along the R21 and a lot of other places. Unfortunately, the west of Joburg is not that good in logistics for some unknown reason. It's maybe just the closeness to our Tambo Airport. Although you mentioned Lanseria, I see there's now new tender civil works coming out on Lanseria that's being extended. There's import-export for freight coming to Lanseria, I gather. So Lanseria is poised for massive development, and you see the land there. But what's lacking is the planning and the execution.
And the services, are they there yet?
They're not there. When they developed Blair Athol 20 years ago, I think Blair Athol falls under Tshwane Council, and the water line comes from Pretoria. The sewer line is probably some packaging plant or something. And 20 years after Blair Athol was developed, there's still no municipal services brought from Pretoria or from Joburg or from Mogale to the area. And that's the biggest stumbling block, because local councils would like to charge bulk contributions, but they're not actually putting in any bulk services and not developing infrastructure. And that's a makes a huge lag factor and makes it very, very difficult to roll out developments. And that's why the developments, if they come on board, they are very, very expensive because the cost of bulk services and the availability of services is expensive. And if you have to go and fetch your water 80 k's away, that's an expensive item.
We've noticed a lot of old industrial areas being, like you're saying, rebuilt, knocked down, redone because the power's there, water's there, power's there, and they're getting redone. And in residential, I mean, what some of these guys are doing, converting, repurposing.
Yeah,
but I mean,
and those are those centers of excellence that you need to hone in on. You need to identify it, and then work in that space.
But tell me, this is more about you. How do you manage all these businesses? I mean, you've got a residential development company, you've got an industrial team, you've got a plant hire team. I mean, you've got a sales team.
Yeah. Good teams, good people.
Give us some of those. You've obviously created a great culture within the company.
Yes.
Because I know some of your staff that have been there as long as I've been dealing with you over 20 years. They're still there.
Yes.
But how do you manage all these businesses as one person?
My management team, it's a small team, but we do well. We manage hard. We're there. I'm involved. Ultimately, I take the decisions, to the good or to the bad of that. I need to be involved. But we're blessed with a very good team. We're ultimately still a very young team. You know, I'm probably one of the older ones in the office. The team is my age and younger than what I am, and that's exciting. It's a youngster, a lot of youngsters.
Have you invested in anything offshore? Have you tried to play in the space overseas, or not really? Just focus.
We always look at it and sit in awe and read what people have done in Spain and Portugal and America and Western Europe and all these places. But being a small business, if you take your eye off a ball, you'll probably get bowled middle pin. So we don't get out much into the rest of Africa, although I think there's a lot of opportunity in Namibia. There's a lot of opportunities in Botswana. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in Zimbabwe and the places like that.
Yeah, and there is. But I'm glad you're...
The world's come smaller.
Listen, I'm a patriot. I think South Africa's got a lot to offer.
Yes.
Traveled a lot, been very fortunate. But I think what we've got here, and the property people, the entrepreneurs, and it seems like we're just always doing something better than our neighbors. Or then, you go, they're bringing all the ideas here and they're making them better.
Yes. I think our peers in the property game, and you're interviewing probably a lot of them in the next month or two. But it's a special breed. It's a special breed. I think you'll go far in the world to find such a lot of interesting people that sees opportunities in things. But I think we were also in the environment that it's possible. If you're in a different environment where you didn't have the opportunity, you didn't have, in like other parts of the world with political and economical climate where they are, South Africa is blessed. We've got great weather. We've got a great economy.
That's why it was so important to get you, because you're kind of under the radar. You're not running a big listed fund. You're not. You kind of doing your own thing. You're an entrepreneur. You're a developer. You're a businessman, and you've created something that it's massive. It's huge. And yes, you only got so many people in your team. But if you see what you've done, over 200 developments. I mean, it's something that I think in South Africa you can get right. I don't know if it allows you
in any other place in the world.
Yeah,
100%. Like Australia, I think to do what we do in Australia is because of it being so governed and so hard ruled. It's probably not possible, and it's not possible probably in England where it's old rules, old people.
So it's easier to make 20 rand than to make a pound.
100%. Yeah.
So blessed. So tell me, I mean, as a youngster coming through, as a graduate, I mean, what kind of advice? Well, firstly, did you have any regrets? Looking back now,
no.
Did anything look back or wish you'd have done something different or better?
I think you can always do something better, but in general, no. I think I'm very fortunate that we enjoy property immensely, and we enjoy the rental income, and we enjoy the ownership of property, and we understand the ownership of property, and we embrace it. And it's a longevity thing at the end of the day. What it's taught us is your horizon needs to be far and wide. 20 years ago, I met an old investor on the West Rand, and he asked me, what is your 30-year plan for property? What are you buying for 30 years?
50 years.
And I thought, 30 years. I get a bond over 20. That's a long time. Now 30 years, and all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, you are 30 years down the road. So it's to have a long view, to be patient. So the vulture's a patient bird. Same thing in property. You need to sit. You need to be conservative, focus.
Property is always your friend.
Property,
and even when there's like inflation, it's even more of a friend of yours because it just grows and it becomes more valuable.
Yeah.
Tell me, as a youngster coming out of like studies, any advice? And before, because I always ask this question, like as they graduates, what should they be doing?
Should buy property.
Buy property.
Buy property. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. And we in Renico as well, we try and encourage that as far as possible. And I've always said that you need to buy property. I think in the past 2-3 years, we've probably got to a point where the average person cannot afford to buy property anymore. But I think if it's a task that you need to do as a property entrepreneur, as a business person, as a graduate, as anybody, you need to own the property that you live in. And it's a simple thing. You get to an age where you are old and frail. If you don't own the property you are left to the devices of others. And then it becomes hard. Then life becomes very, very hard if you don't at least own the roof over your head. It is the biggest investment that you'll make, but it's a very important investment. You need to sacrifice McDonald's twice a week and all the other luxuries that you enjoy and button down and own at least your primary home.
You mentioned something there, retirement and frail. Have you got involved in that space at all?
Not really. We did a bit of it in Potchefstroom, where we spent a bit of time as well, identifying that as a niche in the old Western Transvaal. And we did it's a co-development with Al's group that developed a retirement, or that developed an estate with a retirement component. We looked at it. We have not done retirement formally as our own developments. And we have these discussions frequently. Shouldn't we get involved in it? But it's a complex thing: property, life rights, sectional title, frail care, assisted living. There's a lot of rules around it. It's a specialized game. There's a lot of people that specialize in that, and they do it. I don't think we'll be involved in it soon, although we see that the pressures on it and we see there's opportunity in it, but it's not in our short-term plan.
So I asked the questions, what do you do as a graduate? And then I'll say, what do you do when you're 30? But you already said, let's start buying property at 23. So if you're at 30,
you must have 10. It's a simple thing. If you from the age of 30 to 50, you acquire a property a year. From 50 to 70, you keep it. And from 70 for the next 20 years, you sell one a year. You'll live comfortably. And Naughty Kirsch is the most... Property is probably the place where the most stupid people can make money as well. And that's true. It's a simple thing. You buy a property, acquire another one, another two, another three. If you acquire 5 or 10 or 20 in your lifespan and you sell them when you go to retirement age, one a year, you'll probably look after yourself better than what your pension fund or your whatever you have planned for your retirement looks after you.
Well, you certainly started at a young age, and the king of the Wesrand, I mean, from buying your own property to developing, to getting involved in plant tire, and then industrial, and now bigger and future developments, and setting the standard for a lot of other developers, some of which are listed or being listed or backed by big financial institutions. You've done it with the support of some of your bankers.
Yeah.
And you've done an incredible job about it, and you've done an amazing thing. You have certainly changed the landscape of the West Rand, and it's been an absolute pleasure and wonderful to hear the story. And I just want to thank you. I don't know if I've missed anything because it's been so exciting. You went so quickly. I mean, it's like a
rash.
Yeah, but it's been amazing, and I'm just so happy that you've come and told your story. And it's like given a lot of other young entrepreneurs, when they listen to this, to say, this, we can do it too.
Yes.
And I think that's the beauty about South Africa and about business people and about 100%. Ambitious property.
I think to leave you with a thought, someone said to me a long time ago, you must remember population growth and cement sales have never been on a negative curve. 100%. And if you think about that, population growth and cement sales have never been on a negative curve. In that, where you are in the curve might differ. You might be an up or down, but over a 10 or 20 or 30 year period, cement sales go up and population growth goes up. The world population is ever expanding. So property is probably the right place to be if you're a youngster and you understand a bit of math and you understand leveraging and all these great things that we've got available to us fairly easily. It's an exciting place to be.
Yeah. And I think the next show I'm going to try to get the head of town planning of Joburg City in here, and let's ask him some hard questions. Yeah, but I mean,
definitely.
You exemplify what it is to be a businessman in property and an entrepreneur. And it's wonderful to, and as I say, you are one of those boers that made a plan, and you've done it in an exceptional way. So thank you.
Thanks for the invitation.
And thank
Appreciate
you for
it, Norman.
being here and sharing it with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm Norman Raad, and see you on the next one. And please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Cheers for now.